For most of my life, I thought getting better sleep just meant chamomile tea and turning off my phone. I honestly thought I knew all the tricks. I was wrong. The secret to unlocking the best sleep of my life wasn't on some wellness blog or a morning talk show. It was found by doing this and this and a few other genuinely bizarre tricks that are actually backed by neuroscientists. I'm talking about techniques so strange they sound like they were made up on a dare. But for 7 nights, I ditched my normal, failing routine for these weird hacks. I tracked everything: my deep sleep, my REM, how fast I fell asleep, all to answer one question: does weird science actually work? The results from my sleep tracker were not what I expected. And what I discovered completely changed how I think about rest. Stick with me, because what I'm about to show you might just be the key to fixing your sleep for good. Before we get into the experiment, let's talk about the before picture. And honestly, it wasn't pretty. My relationship with sleep was, to put it nicely, a dumpster fire. A nightly battle I was always losing. You probably know the feeling. It's 11 p.m. You're exhausted. You've worked all day. Your body is tired. But the second your head hits the pillow, your brain decides it's the perfect time to throw a party. A loud, obnoxious party. And the guest list includes every embarrassing thing you've ever done, a detailed anxiety-fueled breakdown of tomorrow's to-do list, and a special appearance by that one weird email you have to answer in the morning. For me, this was a spiral. I'd lie there, my mind racing. Then came the inevitable dreaded glance at the clock. 12:17 a.m. Okay, if I fall asleep right now, I can still get almost 6 hours. Then another glance. 1:04 a.m. The anxiety starts to bubble up. A little voice in my head starts doing the math, projecting how tired I'm going to be, how useless my morning will be. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of exhaustion. And then there was my biggest bad habit, revenge bedtime procrastination. This is that stubborn refusal to go to sleep because your evening is the only time that feels like it belongs to you. It's a rebellion against a busy schedule, where you try to claw back a few hours of me time by scrolling your phone, watching one more episode, or just falling down an internet rabbit hole. The problem is, you're not stealing time from your busy day. You're stealing it from your own health, your own sanity. And I was a pro at this. I'd be propped up in bed, phone glowing, knowing full well I was sabotaging my tomorrow, but I just couldn't stop. I wasn't a total rookie when it came to sleep hygiene. I'd tried the greatest hits. I cut out caffeine after 2 p.m. I bought blue light blocking glasses. I tried sleepy time tea, melatonin, those magnesium powders all over social media. And sure, they sometimes helped a little, but nothing really stuck. Nothing got to the core problem. I didn't know how to turn my brain off. My sympathetic nervous system, the body's fight or flight mode, was stuck in the on position. I was stuck in a cycle of tired. Waking up tired, running on fumes all day, feeling wired but exhausted at night, and then doing it all over again. I knew something had to change, but the usual advice wasn't working. That's when I fell down a different kind of rabbit hole. Not TikTok trends, but the weird corners of actual sleep science. Techniques that have been studied but just aren't as famous. I found tips from places like the Mayo Clinic and university studies that were so counterintuitive and, frankly, so strange. I was immediately skeptical. Tensing your muscles to relax, wearing socks to cool down, it all sounded like nonsense. But what if it wasn't? What if the standard advice failed because my problem wasn't standard? So I decided to run a 7-night experiment on myself. I would abandon my old, broken routine and commit completely to a new one, built from the weirdest, most wonderful, expert-approved sleep science I could find. Here was the plan. For 7 nights, I would try a series of unconventional hacks. I landed on progressive muscle relaxation, flooding my room with lavender, the highly debated practice of wearing socks to bed, and listening to classical music. I would try them one by one, then start mixing them to see what would happen. To keep myself honest and get some real objective data, I brought in a partner, my sleep tracker. I'd worn one for months, so I had a solid baseline. I focused on 3 key metrics: sleep latency, how long it takes me to actually fall asleep; deep sleep duration, the physically restorative stage where your body repairs itself; overall sleep score, the tracker's all-in-one score that accounts for sleep stages, heart rate, and restlessness. My baseline was not great. It took me on average 35 minutes to fall asleep. My deep sleep was hovering around an hour, which is pretty low. My sleep score was consistently in the fair range, usually in the low 70s. The experiment was ready. The weird science was waiting. Was the key to better sleep just to get a little strange? All right, night 1. First up was progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR. This technique was developed way back in the 1920s by a physician named Edmund Jacobson and is still recommended by experts. The idea is simple, but feels totally backward. To get deeply relaxed, you first have to create tension. You systematically go through your body, tensing a muscle group for about 5 seconds, then releasing it, paying close attention to that feeling of release. The whole point is to make you hyper-aware of the difference between tense and relaxed, which in turn calms down your nervous system. So I got into bed, lights out, phone away. I found a 15-minute guided PMR audio to walk me through it. The voice calmly told me to start with my feet. Tense the muscles in your toes. Curl them tightly. Hold it. 3, 2, 1. And release. I'm lying there in the dark, scrunching my toes like I'm trying to pick up a marble. It felt absolutely ridiculous. I could feel a laugh bubbling up. This is what scientists recommend, but I stuck with it. I released my toes, and I had to admit, there was a noticeable wave of warmth and release that followed. We moved up the body, calves, thighs. I squeezed my glutes, tensed my abs, clenched my fists. Each time, the same thing. a moment of strain, followed by a surprisingly deep release. The real test came at my shoulders and face. The guide said, "Shrug your shoulders up to your ears and hold." I had no idea how much tension I was already holding there until I was asked to make it worse. My shoulders were basically earrings. When I let go, they dropped what felt like a foot. It was a genuine aha moment. Then, the face. Scrunch your entire face toward your nose. Squeeze your eyes. Wrinkle your nose. Purse your lips. Hold and release. I must have looked like a dried up apple, but the release was incredible. It felt like I'd been wearing a mask of stress all day without knowing it, and I was finally taking it off. By the time the 15 minutes were over, something had definitely shifted. My body didn't just feel relaxed, it felt heavy. It was a grounded physical stillness I hadn't felt in ages. My usual mental tornado was gone. Why? Because for 15 minutes, I literally couldn't think about my to-do list. I was too busy thinking, okay, now I have to clench my left thigh. The physical focus crowded out the mental noise. In a way, PMR isn't just about your muscles. It's a brilliant trick. It's active mindfulness that hijacks your brain's attention and forces it to focus on your body. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember finishing the exercise, feeling incredibly calm, and then my alarm was going off. The morning after, I grabbed my phone, dying to see the data. The results were immediate and undeniable. My sleep latency, normally 35 minutes, had dropped to just 12 minutes. My deep sleep was up by 15 minutes, and my overall sleep score jumped from a 72 to an 84. It was the highest score I'd had in months. I was floored. One night of clenching my muscles like a weirdo gave me better results than months of trying the normal stuff. I woke up feeling not just rested, but solid. It was a promising and very weird start. Night 2, the lavender bomb. After the shocker success of night 1, I was optimistic about night 2. Tonight's hack, lavender. This one feels a little more familiar, right? People have used lavender to chill out for centuries, but I always filed it under nice, but probably a placebo. I wanted to know if there was real science behind it, and there is. Studies have shown that the scent of lavender can lead to an increase in slow-wave sleep, which is our deepest, most restorative sleep phase. The theory is that compounds in lavender interact with brain neurotransmitters, creating a calming effect. So I went all in. I didn't just get a little pillow sachet. I bought a full-on essential oil diffuser. I was going to create a literal cloud of calm. I filled it with water, added about 10 drops of lavender oil, probably way too much, and turned it on an hour before bed. My bedroom transformed. Within minutes, the air was thick with lavender. It smelled less like a bedroom and more like a high-end spa that had just been aggressively fumigated. It was a lot. My first thought was, this is either going to knock me out or give me a headache. As I got ready for bed, The scent settled from overwhelming into a pleasant background note. It was undeniably a relaxing vibe. It was like the smell itself was a signal to my brain that this space was now for rest only. No other hacks tonight. No muscle clenching, just me and the purple haze. I got into bed and read a physical book, Sleep Hygiene 101. The scent was nice, but I wasn't feeling that same profound physical heaviness I got from PMR. My mind was a bit busier. I was still thinking about work, about tomorrow. I was skeptical that a smell alone could be powerful enough to stop that. I did drift off, but I was more aware of it this time. It wasn't the sudden lights out experience of night one. The morning after, I checked the tracker. The results were interesting, though not as dramatic. My sleep latency was 22 minutes, better than my baseline, but not as good as the 12 minutes from PMR. The big change, however, was in my sleep quality. My deep sleep duration had increased by 25 minutes compared to my baseline. The tracker even flagged it as one of my longest deep sleep periods ever. My overall sleep score was a respectable 79. So what does that mean? It seems lavender wasn't a silver bullet for falling asleep faster, but it did improve the quality of my sleep once I was out. It was like it didn't help me get to the party, but once I got there, it made the party way better. The science held up. The scent seemed to encourage my brain to spend more time in that deep restorative phase. It wasn't magic, but it was clearly a powerful tool. And hey, my room smelled fantastic. Night 3, the sockening. Tonight was the night I was dreading. Night 3's hack is maybe the most divisive, most controversial topic in the sleep world. Wearing socks to bed. People are firmly in one of two camps, and I have always been passionately, vocally, in the anti-sock camp. The thought of my feet being trapped, overheating, stuck in fabric prisons all night, it gives me the creeps. My feet need to be free, but the science is surprisingly compelling. The National Sleep Foundation and other experts explain it's actually about cooling you down, not just warming you up. When your feet are cold, your blood vessels constrict. Warming your feet with socks causes vasodilation, the widening of those blood vessels. This lets blood rush to your feet, and as it circulates near the skin, it releases heat, which helps lower your core body temperature. A drop in core body temperature is a key signal your brain needs to start sleep. Small studies have even found that people wearing socks fell asleep faster and slept longer. So, despite every fiber of my being screaming, "No," I had to try it. I picked out a pair of soft, breathable cotton socks. I put them on right before getting into bed, and I'll be honest, it felt deeply wrong. My feet felt claustrophobic. I lay in bed, hyper-aware of the fabric. It was all I could think about. "My feet are in sock jail," my brain yelled. I was convinced this would be a total bust. I fully expected to rip them off in a rage at 3 a.m. But then, after 10 or 15 minutes, something weird happened. I realized my feet weren't overheating. They were just pleasantly warm. And as I lay there, I noticed a subtle shift. It's hard to describe, but it felt like my whole body was settling. That scientific explanation of vasodilation suddenly made sense in real life. My body was shedding heat, and it was deeply calming. I was still aware of the socks, but it was no longer a feeling of panic. Eventually, the sensation just faded away, and I fell asleep. And to my total shock, I did not wake up to tear them off. The morning after, I woke up, and the first thing I noticed was that the socks were still on, a victory in itself. I immediately grabbed my phone, super curious about the data. The numbers were, again, surprising. My sleep latency was 18 minutes, a huge improvement over my baseline, and even better than the lavender night. My deep sleep was still about 10 minutes above my baseline. My overall sleep score was an 81. I was a reluctant convert, wearing socks to bed. The one thing I swore I'd never do actually worked. It didn't shut my brain down, like PMR, but the purely physical effect was undeniable. It was like a gentle biological nudge toward sleep. It seems my lifelong hatred of sleeping in socks was based on nothing but stubbornness. The science was right, and my cold, free feet had been wrong all along. Night 4, the classical concerto. For night 4, I turned to a different sense, hearing. The hack was listening to classical music before bed. I've always been someone who needs absolute silence to sleep, so adding noise, even nice noise, seemed like a terrible idea. My brain usually hears a sound and thinks, ooh, something to analyze. But the research is there. Studies have found that listening to classical music before bed can improve sleep quality. The idea is that the structure, tempo, and lack of lyrics in classical music can help slow your heart rate, reduce stress hormones, and encourage relaxation without engaging the language parts of your brain. It gives your racing thoughts a gentle melody to follow instead of a chaotic internal monologue. I made a playlist of slow, calming classical pieces. Lots of piano and strings. Think Debussy and Chopin. I specifically avoided the dramatic, cannon-firing symphonies, aiming for the audio equivalent of a warm blanket. About half an hour before bed, I dimmed the lights and started the music at a low volume. At first, it was distracting. My brain immediately started trying to follow the melodies. It felt like work, not relaxation. Part of me just wanted to turn it off, but I stuck with it. I closed my eyes and tried to just let the music wash over me. I focused on my breathing, and slowly, it happened. The music faded from the foreground to the background. It became a texture in the room, like the lavender scent. It filled the void where my anxious thoughts usually started to echo. I realized my mind wasn't jumping from worry to worry. It was loosely tethered to the rise and fall of the piano. It was just enough of a distraction to keep my brain from spinning out, but not so engaging that it kept me awake. I fell asleep before the playlist even ended. The morning after, I woke up feeling serene. That's the only word for it. I checked the tracker. My sleep latency was 20 minutes, again a solid improvement. My deep sleep showed a modest increase, but the biggest change was a metric I hadn't focused on. My resting heart rate during sleep was noticeably lower than on any other night. It had dropped by several beats per minute, a strong sign of a more relaxed state. My sleep score was a 78. Classical music seemed to work on a more subtle physiological level. It didn't knock me out like PMR, but it quieted my whole system. It created the right conditions for sleep to happen naturally. It was less of a hack and more of a wind down. And it proved that for a brain that loves to make noise, sometimes the best solution is to give it better noise to listen to. Okay, we're 4 nights in, and the results are already wild. But I know I'm not the only one who has tried weird things for a good night's sleep. So I have to ask, what's the strangest sleep hack you've ever tried? Did you put lettuce in your water? Try the military method? What worked? And what was a total disaster? Drop your story in the comments. Let's build the ultimate library of sleep secrets together. Now, back to the weirdness. Night 5. The combo. Relaxation and scent. We've hit night 5, and it's time to level up. The individual hacks were working shockingly well, but if one is good, 2 must be better, right? My theory was that I could find a combination where the whole was greater than the sum of its parts. For the first combo night, I paired the 2 most sensory-based hacks: progressive muscle relaxation, the MVP from night 1, and the lavender diffuser, the deep sleep champion. I figured the lavender would create the perfect calming environment, and the PMR would then deliver the knockout punch. It was a strategy of total sensory relaxation. So, an hour before bed, I fired up the diffuser. The atmosphere immediately felt more tranquil. By the time I got into bed for the PMR routine, the room was a full-blown relaxation sanctuary. I started the guided PMR audio, and this time, the experience was on another level. The lavender scent seemed to prime my brain for relaxation before I even tensed a single muscle. As I went through the motions, tensing my toes, my calves, the physical sensations were layered with the calming smell. When the guide told me to breathe deep and release, I wasn't just breathing air. I was inhaling calm. It felt like it was accelerating the whole process. The release of tension felt deeper. The wave of warmth that followed seemed to spread faster. By the time I got to my shoulders and face, I was already ridiculously calm. The PMR routine, which felt a bit silly on its own, now felt like a sacred ritual. The combination of actively releasing tension and passively inhaling a relaxing scent was creating a powerful feedback loop. The scent made the PMR more effective, and the PMR made me more receptive to the scent. I finished the 15-minute routine and felt gone. My body was so heavy, it felt like it was sinking into the mattress. My mind was completely silent. I have zero memory of what happened after the audio ended. The morning after, I woke up feeling like I had been factory reset. It was a deep, restorative feeling I hadn't had in years, I was almost a little groggy, but in a good way, the way you feel after a truly deep sleep. I scrambled for my sleep tracker, with my expectations sky high. The data was staggering. It blew every other night out of the water. My sleep latency was just 7 minutes. 7. I fell asleep almost instantly. But the truly mind-blowing number was my deep sleep. It had skyrocketed to 1 hour and 45 minutes. That was more than double my baseline. My overall sleep score was a 92, putting me in the excellent category for the first time ever. This was the synergy I was looking for. The combination wasn't just two good things at once, it was a force multiplier. The lavender created the perfect runway, and the PMR was the plane that took off into a deep, uninterrupted sleep. This was the moment I realized building a killer sleep routine wasn't about finding one magic bullet. It was about finding the right combination of signals to send your brain and body. And for me, this combo was pure magic. After 7 nights of clenching, sniffing, and sock wearing, the experiment was over. It was time to look at the data and figure out what actually happened. Was it all in my head? Or did I genuinely find a better way to sleep? Let's just look at the before and after. Before this week, my average time to fall asleep was a frustrating 35 minutes. My average deep sleep was a measly 55 minutes. And my average sleep score was a totally mediocre 72. I was waking up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. Now, look at the after. Across the 7 nights of the experiment, my average time to fall asleep dropped to just 16 minutes, less than half the time I used to spend tossing and turning. My average deep sleep climbed to 1 hour and 20 minutes, a 45% increase. My average sleep score shot up to 83. I went from fair to good and even hit excellent. The numbers don't lie. This wasn't just a feeling. It was a quantifiable, data-backed transformation. But not all hacks are created equal. I had to rank them based on my experience and the data. The official ranking of weird sleep hacks, honorable mention, classical music. This was a great background player. It didn't dramatically cut the time it took me to fall asleep, but it consistently lowered my resting heart rate, which points to a calmer nervous system. I'd call this a fantastic entry-level hack for anyone whose main problem is a mind that won't shut up. Number 3, lavender scent. On its own, lavender was the quality over quantity champion. It didn't knock me out fast, but it significantly increased my amount of deep sleep. If you feel like you're sleeping enough hours but still wake up tired, you might need more restorative deep sleep, and a calming scent could be a game changer. Number 2, wearing socks to bed. I am still shocked that I'm writing this. The hack I dreaded most was one of the most effective. It was a purely physiological cheat code. By warming my feet, it tricked my body into lowering its core temperature, a critical signal for sleep. It was simple, it was effective, and it made me question my lifelong assumptions. Number 1, progressive muscle relaxation, PMR. This was, hands down, the MVP of the week. PMR was the most powerful technique for shutting down my racing mind and relaxing my body. On its own, it destroyed my sleep latency. Combined with lavender, it gave me the single best night of sleep I have ever recorded. So why did these weird hacks work when "don't look at your phone" never felt like enough? Because they tackle the root of the problem using both psychology and physiology. Think of your nervous system as having two modes. Sympathetic is your on switch, the gas pedal. It's for alertness and stress. The parasympathetic nervous system is your off switch, the brake pedal. It's for rest and calm. Most of us with sleep problems are stuck with the gas pedal floored at 11 p.m. Progressive muscle relaxation is like manually pumping the brakes. The act of tensing and releasing forces a physiological shift. But more importantly, it's a mental trick. You can't stress about an email when you're busy figuring out if your left calf is fully clenched. It short-circuits the anxiety loop and activates that rest mode. Wearing socks works on a purely physical level. It's thermodynamics. By warming your feet and hands, you encourage your blood vessels to open up, a process called vasodilation, which lets your body vent heat and lower your core temperature. A falling core body temp is a powerful primal signal to your brain that it's time to sleep. You're basically hacking your internal thermostat. A word on the trends I didn't. Trying my research, I saw a few other viral trends, and I want to quickly explain why they didn't make the cut. First, mouth taping. This is all over TikTok, with people taping their mouths shut to force nasal breathing. While nasal breathing is better for you, experts warn that mouth taping can be genuinely dangerous, especially if you have allergies, a deviated septum, or undiagnosed sleep apnea. It can obstruct your breathing, and that is not a risk worth taking for a TikTok trend. Please talk to a doctor before even thinking about this. Second, bed rotting. This is the Gen Z trend of spending all day in bed for self-care. While rest is crucial, sleep experts overwhelmingly agree that your bed should be for two things: sleep and intimacy. When you start working, eating, and binge-watching from bed, your brain's association between bed and sleep gets blurry, which can make it harder to fall asleep at night. A lazy day is great, but maybe take it to the couch. And finally, the potato bed, which involves making a pillow nest inside your fitted sheet. While people say it feels cozy and the pressure can be calming, it seemed more like a comfort hack than a science-based one. And honestly, it looked incredibly hot. My experiment was about finding things that were weird, but still grounded in actual science. And the results speak for themselves. Conclusion. So what's the big lesson from my week of weird sleep science? It's this. Fixing your sleep isn't about one magic pill or a single perfect hack. It's about building a personalized ritual. It's about sending your body and brain a series of clear signals that the day is over and it's time to power down. The standard advice to just avoid blue light is incomplete. It tells you what not to do. What I learned is that you have to be proactive about what you do. You have to actively tell your system to downshift. The weirdness of these hacks was their strength. They were so different from my normal routine that they effectively shattered my bad habits and forced me to build new ones. My new permanent sleep routine is a greatest hits album from this experiment. An hour before bed, the lavender diffuser goes on, signaling the start of my wind down. Then, about 15 minutes before I want to be asleep, I get into bed and do a quick 5-minute version of the PMR routine, focusing on my shoulders, neck, and face. And yes, on cold nights, I will be wearing socks. I admit it. The sock haters were wrong. This experiment totally reframed how I see rest. Sleep isn't a passive state that just happens to you if you're lucky. It's an active process of letting go. It requires intention. It requires a ritual that tells your frantic modern brain that it's safe to be still, it's safe to be quiet, and it is time to rest. The problem was never that I was bad at sleeping. The problem was that I was trying to go from 100 to 0 in a split second. These hacks are the missing steps in between. They are the gentle scientific ramp that guides you down. Sleep is no longer a battle I fight every night. It's a process I initiate, and the best part is waking up feeling rested and clear. That feeling is worth more than any extra episode or late night scroll. It's worth feeling a little weird, clenching your toes in the dark. Because sometimes the weirdest key is the one that finally unlocks the door. If this video inspired you to rethink your own sleep, or if you just enjoyed watching me get weird for science, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I'm always exploring new ways to upgrade our lives based on real science, and I'd love for you to come along. And don't forget to check out this video next, where I dive into the science of focus. Here's to better sleep. Here's to feeling human again.